Hello everyone, welcome to this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. Great having you on the channel today. We have Tropical Storm Humberto, which is going to become a major hurricane. We are also watching Invest 94L. These two systems could have some impact, with one of these systems making landfall somewhere along the U.S. East Coast over the next several days. We're going to get into all the details, your tropics and the weather. Let's get into it. So here we are with our infrared satellite picture. Here's Invest 94L. This is our big system we're going to be watching. Lots of shower and thunderstorm action right to the southwest of Puerto Rico here, Dominican Republic, and eventually heading towards the Turks and Caicos here. You can see plenty of deep convection. This is likely our next tropical storm. You can also see this big ball of convection firing around Humberto here, which is likely to become a major hurricane very shortly here. Invest 94L is likely to become Tropical Storm Imelda. All right, so here we are starting off with the GFS, and then I'll show you the European model in a couple minutes. So here's Invest 94L, still producing heavy rain. This is going to be our main system, our likely landfalling system here across the U.S. East Coast. And then here's Humberto out here. Humberto is going to be going through rapid intensification while Invest 94L moves through the Turks and Caicos over the next 24 hours. Right around Saturday morning, it's moving through the central Bahamas. By this point, Humberto is going to be a Category 3 storm. Could it become a Category 4? It's quite possible. I think this could go higher, more like 130, close to 140, with gusts as high as 155, 160. It's got some very good atmospheric conditions. Shear is slackening, very, very warm air, and pretty much no dry air. So as we stretch through the 28th, 5 p.m. later on in the weekend, you can see this system off the southeast coast becoming much better organized, especially as it goes a little bit faster here, the Humberto. So it's getting away from Humberto's influence slightly. You can see the latest run showing it moving just around, and I'll show you, the Euro is almost on target with this. South Carolina, North Carolina area, it's, borderline high-end tropical storm, Category 1 hurricane, maybe a Category 2 hurricane. We'll keep an eye on it, especially if you can outpace its influence of Humberto here. But you see it moving pretty fast once it makes landfall into North Carolina here with a surging moisture. And look at this. I want to show you. High pressure up here across parts of Ontario and Quebec. Also that high retreating to the east. That's going to split and allow this system, Humberto, to move to the northeast. This may actually let Bermuda off the hook for the most part too, so this could be good for both the East Coast and Bermuda. Unfortunately, our first storm, Invest 94L, does make landfall, and we're stuck with a lot of tropical moisture just really propagating across the Carolinas. It actually retrogrades back south here into South Carolina before slightly heading back towards the north here as this high pressure retreats off the U.S. East Coast. So that's something we're going to keep a very close watch on. So continuing on here, you can see this system really starts to move towards the north, and it's right around the October 3rd, 4th time frame. This tropical moisture really starts to surge across eastern North Carolina, Virginia, Delmarva area as this high pressure retreats off the U.S. East Coast and southeast Canada. You can see that pushes the moisture further to the north and to the west here, and eventually up towards parts of New England. So we're going to watch closely for that. Doesn't look like anything else behind this in the pipeline. I will show you the rest of the tropics right after I show you the European model of Invest 94L and Humberto. And I'll also show you what's going on here with Gabrielle in several minutes from now. But we do get to right around October 10th. There is a little bit of a flare up here. And here we are, thanks to Tropical Tidbits, for our European model analysis. Here is Invest 94L, and here is Humberto. Humberto is going to strengthen rapidly to a major hurricane over the next couple days and this weekend. Now, you can see here is Invest 94L moving right through the Bahamas, and I'll be zooming in on this area in particular in just a minute or two. So we're going to get into that. Also, some tropical waves behind it here, but thankfully none of those look like they're really going to develop into anything. So the first thing with these storms is Humberto. There it is, 955 millibars on early Monday morning here. And our Invest 94L system looks to be a hurricane by this point, approaching the South Carolina, North Carolina border area here on this latest run of the European model. You can see what's happening here. Ultimately, we have massive high pressure over eastern Canada. We also have it's kind of nosing down in this general direction. So initially, Invest 94L ends up going just to the west here. Now, what happens here is these two systems kind of interact. So we have our landfalling hurricane back through here, our storm hurricane, whatever it is by this point, 945 millibar hurricane going right near or over Bermuda. And you can see this one does have the ability, since the high does start to consolidate, it starts to push this storm off to the northeast as it's starting to follow this trough that's kicking off towards Europe. So that is the good news. Thankfully, it does look like it's going to miss mostly the Azores here as well. Just drag, kind of a cold front through that region. But I want to bring your attention to the East Coast. That moisture is going to get hung up here across the eastern Carolinas up through Virginia, Delmarva area. And this could be a prolonged period of rain, even up as far as New York City, come the 5th into the 6th. And then that finally moves off the coast as a remnant low pressure system. So you get the idea here. East Coast is very active. It does look like there's some sort of low pressure forming off the U.S. East Coast right around Friday the 10th again. So very, very active. Strangely enough, the intertropical convergence zone still cranking out here. And here we go, showing you the hurricane model of Invest 94L. Likely our next tropical storm. You can see it moving across parts of the Bahamas as we stretch through the 27th here. So we're heading on into 2 a.m. Saturday morning. Moving through the Bahamas, this thing pretty well intensifying it pretty quickly here. As we can take a look, see if we have any. There we go. So as this continues towards shore, you can see this approaching right around. Oh, this is interesting. This is further north and east of our model guidance of our synoptic scale models. This is our last frame showing it a major, close to a major hurricane off the coast here. Look at that, 964 millibars. That is pretty intense, but we'll keep an eye on it here. See if it has any more time over the open water. So there's our hurricane model. And hurricane model for Humberto. Let's take a look, see how quickly this strengthens to a major hurricane. There it is. You can see rapid intensification, 952 millibars by about 8 a.m. on the 28th. So we're getting on into the weekend here. Look at that. It's a little bit west of guidance, but for the most part, it's pretty well on target here, 954 millibars. Here's Bermuda. Here's North Carolina. So thankfully, this one is likely to make a clean exit, whereas our western system here, Invest 94L, likely not. Now, zooming in on this area, here is Invest 94L. Definitely wanted to show you what's happening over Haiti here, Dominican Republic, away from Puerto Rico. Now it's heading towards the Turks and Caicos for early Saturday morning. Here is Humberto. It's going to come very close to the Northeast Caribbean islands here. A lot of wave action, rip currents, that sort of thing. Invest 94L is likely to develop into a tropical storm Sunday into early Monday as over the Bahamas. And you can see that area of high pressure to the east. You can see it much more prevalent here. That is initially pushing this system left towards the coastline here. The latest Euro has it a little bit to the north towards the South Carolina, North Carolina border, but you can see some tremendous moisture with it. Also, on the southern end of these systems, watch out for some scattered heavy rain through Jamaica, the Cayman Islands. As we head into early next week, you can see all that happening here on our model run. As you can see, it just continues, and a tropical wave moving through Jamaica here, and eventually Nicaragua, Honduras, and Belize. You can see right around Friday, October 3rd. But look at this. This is what I wanted to show you. Surging on southeast flow. What's left of this system is going to keep rain barreling into eastern North Carolina and Virginia through the 3rd, 4th, and 5th of October. So that's very concerning. And we also see another tropical wave trying to take effect here across parts of the eastern Gulf. So definitely watching out for more tropical waves moving through the Caribbean as we head through that first full week of October. We'll watch it here because I still think we're going to see more homegrown systems. Look at how the Caribbean is lighting up here October 10th, pretty much everywhere. Some very heavy rain, showers, and thunderstorms. But strangely enough, the Gulf just stays so quiet. All right, so showing the rest of the tropics here, you can see Yeah, outside of Invest 94L and Humberto, once these systems move away, you can see right around the 29th into the 30th. Ultimately, what we're seeing here is some clearing across the central and western Caribbean. We do have some showers and thunderstorms here towards Cuba, Dominican Republic, and then eventually October 1st as we head towards Jamaica. Look at over here in the Lesser Antilles. Looks pretty clear, even through Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is not slated to see much rain after all the effects of Invest 94L have pulled through. But look at the northwestern Caribbean. I do think as we go through time, Central America still looks pretty dry here, but this area of the Caribbean I'm a little concerned about over the next couple weeks. We may have something try to form here. There's been some positive signals going on. Look at the southern Gulf here on the GFS. There might be something trying to form over here into the Bay of Campeche. Now, as we head towards October 9th, I told you this is some persistence here through the Bahamas and the Northwest Caribbean. It looks like something is trying to organize right around Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. We'll definitely keep a very close watch on it because if you remember, in late October 2012, this is the area that Hurricane Sandy formed out of. Across the rest of the Atlantic here, yeah, the intertropical convergence zone, it's still going, but it does not look as impressive as it did, say, a month ago. We got a few tropical waves. And I wanted to briefly touch on Gabrielle here. It's a post-tropical system. It's going to be moving through the Azores as we stretch through early Friday morning, Friday afternoon. Watch out. Could be some wind gusts as high as hurricane force here, 75 to 90 miles an hour. And then as we head towards the weekend, right around the 27th and 28th, this actually makes landfall in Portugal and then moves off towards southern Spain and eventually Morocco here as a remnant low. So look at the life cycle of Gabrielle here. Our Invest 94L system, thanks to Tropical Tidbits for our intensity scale analysis. We're likely heading up towards a strong tropical storm, with many of the models now showing some sort of Category 1, maybe touching Category 2 hurricane. So we'll keep an eye on it here. It is quite possible that this does make it up to a Category 1 or 2. And looking at the intensity scale of Humberto, likely to become a Category 3, maybe a potential Category 4 in the coming days. And here we go, sea surface temperature analysis. The Gulf, the Caribbean, the Western Atlantic are on fire. This is where we're going to see a lot of homegrown systems the next 4 to 6 weeks likely. And here we are for the European run. Western Caribbean, there is Invest 94L, dropping more rain on Dominican Republic, Haiti, Turks and Caicos of the Bahamas, really lighten up here. Central America, not too much here. You will get some residual on the southern end of this in Jamaica, right around 40, 50, maybe as high as 60 millimeters. Now, as we stretch through Sunday into Monday of right around the October 5th, 6th time frame, look at this. We surge that first full week of October. More rain here across Jamaica, upwards of 100, maybe 125 millimeters. But yeah, Dominican Republic, some areas with Invest 94L could get up close to 175 to 200 millimeters. And we'll be moistening things up here into October. Look at this, Cancun right around 100, 120 millimeters, down to Belize, 127, north coast of Honduras, right around 100. So we'll watch out for some very heavy rains. And I just wanted to show you Turks and Caicos area before I leave for the next. Look at that, 200, 225 millimeters. Western Caribbean GFS here. Look at this. There's Invest 94L. Yeah, Jamaica, you could pick up 40 to 60 millimeters on the southern end of this. It's the eastern tip of Dominican Republic, 270 millimeters. Hefty rainfall totals, and then as we stretch to the first full week of October, as I said before, these areas, Cayman Islands, Jamaica, up through the Bahamas, we could be looking at 150, close to 200 millimeters. Look at eastern tip of the Yucatan Peninsula here as well. Some areas close to 150, 200 millimeters. And looking at the Eastern Caribbean here, look at our tropical systems. Yeah, initially it's pretty dry across the Lesser Antilles. It's not until the middle part of next week you get a little tropical wave moving through. Even Puerto Rico, St. Croix area, you're in a rain hole here, about a quarter to a half an inch on average. Trinidad, Tobago, not too much, 40, maybe as high as 60 millimeters, but it's further up into the Central Lesser Antilles here towards St. Lucia, these areas. You get close to 80, maybe 100 millimeters out of these tropical waves. All right, so looking at the GFS Eastern Caribbean here, Yeah, rainfall amounts look pretty hefty through parts of Dominican Republic, Turks and Caicos, even over towards Jamaica on the southern end. Now that later on in the forecast period is another tropical wave around Jamaica. You can see it mounts up to 175, 200 millimeters. Eastern tip of, look at that, Dominican Republic. Some of these areas 200 to 300 millimeters. There it is, Puerto Rico. Maybe up to a half to 3/4 of an inch on this model. A little bit lesser amounts through the Lesser Antilles here, but more here on Trinidad Tobago for the GFS, close to 90 millimeters in some locations. We'll keep an eye on it here. Turks and Caicos, yeah, some of these areas closer to 200 to 350 millimeters. And as we take a look at your future radar, yeah, we've had some very heavy rain into parts of the Northeast. It's definitely areas that we needed it big time here. Through 10 p.m., this is going to be booking it on into New England. You see some scattered showers behind it all the way down to the Gulf Coast here. If we just stretch out, you can see most of it's up in Maine and New Brunswick and Nova Scotia here. 3 a.m. on Friday morning. So here it is. Most of this is organizing across the Gulf. Look at that. Through 2 p.m. on Friday. Maybe a few scattered showers and thunder showers up through the Appalachians. Maybe a little bit with this cool pool of air aloft into northern New York, northern New England. But as you can see, as we stretch through 7 p.m. Friday, yeah, we get some big thunder boomers right around the Outer Banks here, stretching south and westward. And unfortunately, this is going to set the stage for all this moisture to inundate this area that could be having a landfalling hurricane from what comes out of Invest 94L here. So we're going to continue to watch it here. You can see September 27th through 2 p.m. We get into Saturday, showers and thunderstorms moving up through parts of Virginia. Severe thunderstorms for your Friday, pretty much confined to southern Arizona. And then as we continue into the weekend, yeah, you have some generalized thunderstorms along the U.S. East Coast and the Southwest out here, but there is no severe weather for Saturday. And here we go, picking up where our future radar left off on our GFS. You can see that surge of moisture heading eastward here up through parts of the Carolinas. Unfortunately, this is out ahead of our Invest 94L system. You can see it does make it up into southeastern Pennsylvania, eastern Pennsylvania through Saturday night. So we might have a surge of moisture here through parts of the Hudson Valley, Catskills, Poconos, New Jersey area. That's some heavy rain. It will be out of the picture throughout most of Sunday, however. Now, all eyes are going to turn to our next system here that will likely be making landfall. It seems like the Euro and the GFS going right around the border of South and North Carolina. So there you have it. That's going to be the thing as we stretch through much of the rest of your week next week. And unfortunately, our system out here, Humberto, it's got a connection here, a tropical connection to our other system. So it's going to keep this tropical moisture socked in. And of course, we got this big old high across Quebec up here. So of course, you can't have any of this moisture flow freely to the north like this. GFS is very pessimistic in keeping it locked up across the southeast, whereas I'll show you the Euro does manage to weaken the high and push it up towards the northeast corridor, where you do need some rain. So we'll keep an eye on it here. Things are looking very, very interesting. And let's see if we just switch over. We can continue where we were leaving off here as we get into the rest of October, stretching on into, here it is. So we do see by about the 4th and the 5th and eventually into the 6th, the high does eventually weaken. It splits into like a high up across Quebec here, at least on this model run. You can see it surging up through parts of the northeast here. Another system moving through the Ohio Valley, but things remain pretty dry west of the Appalachians here, I must admit. But yeah, this looks like a line of convection October 8th and 9th with a strong cold front. And then we really start to try to clear things out here. You can see bottled up just off the southeast coast, tremendous amounts of rainfall. But yeah, if we just back this up, I do want to show you how on this model run, here's Invest 94L. Yeah, the previous model run was further south and west here. You can see it moving into South Carolina and then back towards the southern Appalachians, and then kind of getting hung up here before being pulled back towards the north very slowly. You can see right around the 3rd into the 4th, pivoting north into eastern North Carolina, Virginia Beach. So tremendous moisture and eventually heading towards the northeast for your October 5th, 6th, and eventually the 7. So this is something we're going to have to keep a very close watch on. Picking up where our future radar left off as we continue to watch that moisture, tropical moisture out ahead of Invest 94, stream across the Carolinas, eastern Virginia, southeastern parts of New Jersey. European is a bit more progressive with it, but here is our landfalling system as we stretch through Monday. There it is, right around late Monday night, Tuesday morning. You can see right around the South Carolina, North Carolina border there is a hurricane moving up through parts of North Carolina, and then our other system, he's kind of dancing around each other here initially, and then losing influence as Humberto moves quickly out over the Atlantic. Now look what really gets cranking here, that area of high pressure. Out to the southeast flow here, we're going to see that surge of tropical moisture heading up through parts of eastern North Carolina, Virginia as we stretch to the 4th, the 5th, and eventually up towards the 6th into New York City, Long Island area, and Cape Cod before trying to form another area of low pressure just off the northeast coast. And look at this. Behind it, we see another low pressure taking root over parts of Florida with surging moisture here up the East Coast again. So we're going to really open up the pipeline for a lot of storm action along the East Coast, whether it's tropical or synoptic nor'easter type systems. And rainfall amounts on the European model. Look at this. So this is with maybe pretty much later Thursday night, much to the northeast, another 1 to 2 inches potentially. But look at this is the concern. Look at this tropical moisture coming out of the Gulf, 1 to 2 inches here through the Panhandle initially. But look at this. Here is what's going to happen with Invest 94L, and then it kind of stalls and even robs some moisture over here from Humberto. Look at this. This is just going to continue. I'm very, very, very concerned about this. Look at this. North Carolina, 14, 16, 17, 21 inches. I mean, this is, if this verifies, this would be tremendous flooding potential, even up to Norfolk, 12 inches. Delmarva area, 6 inches. Atlantic City, right around 5 or 6. New York City, 3. And look at this, even up towards Cape Cod, 6 to 7 inches. So this is a big concern we'll be watching. And here we are on the GFS run. Yeah, surging moisture up through parts of the Northeast. And then look at this. As we get Saturday night into early Sunday morning, another 1 to maybe 1.5 inches. But there it is, landfalling system here. This is actually the 12Z GFS, but let me show you the 18Z momentarily. We'll compare. Look at this. Yeah, just like the Euro, some areas, it's not as much, but look at that. 9, 10 inches of rain, eastern North Carolina, South Carolina, 7 to 9 inches, all the way up into the Northeast. Some areas close to 5 to 6 inches. So let's bounce over to our latest run that's been loading here. And let's see here. Let's see if we can refresh this. There we go. So comparing the two, it's a little bit further to the north, very similar. What's troubling is offshore, some of these areas closer to 20, 22 inches. Even eastern North Carolina, you're still around a foot of rain. Up to Norfolk, about 7 to 9 inches. A little bit lesser up here in the parts of the Northeast. Before we continue with more weather coverage, don't forget, smash that like button, everyone. It really does help. Question or comment down below. I love to respond and read your questions or comments. Subscribe if you haven't already. Bell notification button really helps the channel and gets your weather alerts out when I issue a new video. And don't forget, I'm working on my winter 2025-26 outlook, so be sure to check on that the next couple weeks. So let's get it into more weather. NAO Index is looking pretty interesting. Right around, we're going to kind of undulate up and down here. But it averages out to about neutral. MJO Index has taken a turn more for the active as we continue going from about 4 all the way to close to 2 and 1 as we get into the mid to latter part of October. Stormier conditions are going to ensue here. Upper air pattern here, European model looks like this. So we have that ridge off the coast, trophiness across parts of the Gulf Coast area. And you can see what's showing up here. Here's Invest 94L. Here's, by this time, Hurricane Humberto. So we're going to see how they interact here. You can see it much more clearly. There's that ridge of high pressure initially shoving Invest 94L, becoming a storm and potentially a hurricane. But that weakens, and look what that allows. That allows that trough up here to the northeast to start kicking this system out to the east and captures it and moves it across the North Atlantic and pretty much absorbs it. So as we continue through the first full week of October, you can see it's pretty nice here. That ridge continuing through the East Coast here, and Northeast in particular. We do get a cutoff low just propagating across the mid-Mississippi River Valley. That's going to be pushing towards the southeastern United States. That will be focusing, unfortunately, our tropical moisture heading into parts of the southeast and mid-Atlantic. Tropical Storm Bualoi here in the western Pacific. This is going to be moving across the central Philippines here just south of Manila as a tropical storm. Over the next several days, you can see it gathering strength. A typhoon, not more than, say, a Category 1 is likely here as we stretch on into Saturday and into Sunday. This is going to be moving south of where our previous typhoon did, so thankfully, unfortunately, this does really blow up here on our GFS, so we'll have to keep an eye on it, 980 millibars, but that's still around a Category 1, so we'll keep an eye as it moves into northern Vietnam, these areas. So, yeah, lots of heavy rain and gusty wind. Now, as we go through the rest of the Pacific, yeah, we have what's left of Neoguri out here. That's heading off to the northeast and could reform here into a typhoon, so we'll have to watch for that potential as it heads up into the Gulf of Alaska. Now look at this. As we stretch through the 28th into the 29th, we get a big synoptic system moving through parts of South Korea, all the way back through Shanghai, Tokyo, just south of Seoul. So yeah, some wet weather moving through Japan. Don't see any other tropical systems in the pipeline out here, at least through the first full week of October. You can see these synoptic systems really putting a damper on any tropical activity moving up towards Japan. So look at that. We get a generalized area of low pressure that does try to form maybe some tropical towards Taiwan and the northern coast of the Philippines. We'll have to keep an eye on it. This may try to develop into something. In our western Pacific, rainfall amounts here, yeah, our tropical systems are keeping things busy from the central Philippines here, 200 to 400 millimeters all the way over to South China as well. You can see up here, right around Monday the 29th, South Korea and Japan get in on a little bit of rainfall, much of it missing just to the south, especially the southern Japanese islands here. Seoul right around 60 millimeters, Tokyo right around 132, so a little bit wet here with the synoptic system flow. Looking at our Canadian weather outlook here, you can see what's going on. It's mainly the west coast that's going to get the worst weather here. Just these massive Pacific systems that kind of remind you of wintertime here. Look at that. That's some craziness. Also an upper level low moving through Manitoba here. As we stretch into the weekend, you can see the dragging a cold front through northern Ontario and Quebec. Also, some more moisture from the United States making it into Nova Scotia, New Brunswick over here. You can see British Columbia really getting in on the act. Maybe some beneficial rain trying to make it into northern Alberta here, but for the most part, it will remain dry throughout the central prairies here in the eastern Rockies. Now look at October 1st. We start to get a blocking high here across eastern Canada. That's going to wind this low pressure up into Alberta. This would be some very, very welcome great news here. This would result in some heavier rain and downpours. And look at this, another Pacific system moving through. That will have its eyes set on British Columbia, and also a system moving through central Ontario from the United States as we get a surge of moisture on the backside of this high pressure system. You can see it really coming together right around October 7th here and October 8th through Quebec, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland here. Here's another low pressure moving through Ontario and another Pacific system blasting into British Columbia. So it's a very fast moving flow here. Look at that. Ontario, you get this warm front. You can see the cold front right here. There's the warm front. So that's our last frame. October 11th, high pressure building into the northern prairies. And looking at our rainfall amounts here for Canada. Yeah, it's southeast Canada, New Brunswick there, Nova Scotia getting clipped with that system along the East Coast. Look at this, though. This is going to be really, really interesting. The west coast of Canada here, upwards of 100 to 200, maybe 300 millimeters. As you get Pacific storm after Pacific storm, pretty dry here throughout the prairies. You got to go in the far north of Saskatchewan, Manitoba to get into those 60, 80 millimeter amounts. Even Ontario looks a little dry, 20 to 40 millimeters on average. Temperatures are going to be pretty nice here. Look at this. 70s, even some 60s up here into the northern Midwest as we stretch through your Friday. 80s here, parts of the Carolinas. 70s, pretty much Ohio Valley, Northeast Great Lakes region. That's going to extend into your Saturday and also into your Sunday here. Just look at that. Maybe with some more clouds and rain, 70s throughout parts of Virginia, interior Carolinas. 80s building here into the plains. As you can see, Monday, that kind of pushes east towards Chicago area. Still nice 70s and near 80 in some locations for your Monday. So shaping up to be a really nice weekend in many areas. Look at this, a shot of 60s here into northern New England, but pretty nice for this time of year. You know, it could be a lot worse. October 1st, yeah, it's feeling a little fall-like here in northern New England and the eastern Great Lakes. Cleveland all the way northeastward in the mid to upper 60s. And extended outlook, hometown viewers, Binghamton to Scranton, upper Susquehanna River Valley, New York, and Pennsylvania. Beautiful weather. Get out there and enjoy. Sunny skies Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Highs in the mid to upper 70s pretty much every day. Lows in the upper 40s to lower 50s. Plenty more weather to come. Here is a look at my affiliate. Check out these awesome, amazing maps. I am proud to announce that I am now an affiliate with Trilogy Maps. TrilogyMaps.com, bringing you the most digital, customizable maps found nowhere else on the internet. These maps are simply stunning. It's an advanced layering system that makes these maps great for making forecast maps with ease or any other maps that you would like to display important information on. The resolution on these maps is simply amazing. From the detail of everything here in the States, and you can also create stunning, digital, professional layered maps from also across the entire world. And don't forget, in checkout, the discount code option, use my code, MeteoMark, hit apply, and you will get 20% off your order. So if you want the most professional, customizable, and affordable weather maps found nowhere else on the internet, look no further than TrilogyMaps.com. Link in the description down below along with your discount code. As always, thank you for joining me for this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. Also, don't forget to join me on Facebook at MeteoMark, also Weather Northeastern, also Twitter at Weather Eastern. Don't forget it's MeteoMark.com, and don't forget, if you want to send me a coffee, there is a link, super thanks. You can smash that super thanks button or my PayPal link in the description down below. You can buy me a cup of coffee. Thanks everyone, share that video, subscribe if you haven't, smash that like button.